Before we completely finish prototyping this site, there's 2 more pages that we need to design: the cart and the checkout. So much like the product details page, let's just go through and design these together using everything that we've learned so far. So for the cart, I'm actually going to do this a little bit differently. I'm going to make the cart into a modal that we're going to overlay onto whatever screen that we need to, when the time comes, and I'll show you how to do that in the next lesson when we prototype this. But for now, what I want to do is, instead of making this a full screen with, the header and the navigation, the footer and all of that, we're just going to make it a modal. And for that reason, it doesn't need to be as big as the 1440 width that we've been using for the rest of the pages. I'm just going to make it 600. And then the height is going to depend on the contents we have in it. But for now, let's just kind of make it this tall so that we can see what we're doing. So let's make the background our off-white, and let's give it like a good 40 pixel radius. I think that will be nice. And then maybe a shadow as well. So we'll hit the plus button in effects. And whenever I do a shadow, I like to keep it really subtle. So instead of just a 4 pixel blur, I'm going to do like a 60 pixel blur. And instead of 25% opacity of stark black, I'm going to do our off black, and I'm going to do an 8% opacity. So that might seem like barely noticeable, but it's just subtle and it is visible enough to really give you the illusion that it is sticking out from the page, which is exactly what we want out of a modal or overlay. Okay, so now what do we want in this frame? We definitely want, maybe it says cart or cart. Yeah, I think just cart is good. So we want to make this our, not that big of a header. I think maybe, I think this should be good. Our H2. We're also going to need an exit icon, so like an X. And we don't have that so far, actually. So I'm going to go in and add a variant, or we'll call this exit. And we'll get rid of that. This is something that we can just easily create with lines. So I'm going to go in with the line. And one way to make sure that your X is completely proportional is to make a plus button first. So let's make our plus button 16 pixels tall. And then we'll just duplicate this line. And I'm just holding down Shift, and that's going to kind of move it in intervals that we want so that this is exactly at 180. We'll just center that. And we actually need to make this like 17 pixels so that way there's like a middle instead of it always being ever so slightly off. Then I'm going to group those together. And I'm holding down Shift while I rotate again so that we can rotate it exactly 45 degrees. Now we need to make this the color that we wanted, give it the rounded edges. And now that it's 2 pixels, it actually needs to be 16 so that it has a middle. So forget I said that. There we go. Now it is completely proportional. We're just going to center that within this frame, and I'm going to copy it and bring it on over to our cart. And we'll just get that right there. Okay, so we have this. I think for this case, I actually want this inside of a circle. So I'm going to hit O for ellipse and then just create a circle. I think let's go with 36, and then we're going to make this burnt orange. We'll make the icon white, and then we'll just put it over top. And if you're wondering what that shortcut was to move something to the front layer-wise, well, first you could totally just move layers around here. But if you want to move things around using the shortcut, I'm holding Command and the brackets. So if I do the left bracket, it's going to go backwards in space. And if I do the right bracket, it's going to come forwards. And if you want to bring something completely to the front, you don't hold down Command and you just click on it and tap on the right bracket or the left bracket to bring it all the way to the bottom. But if you want to move layer by layer, that's when you hold Command. Okay, so that is pretty good. Let's frame these together. And we'll call this exit. Oop, that's not how you spell exit. Exit. Okay, so that is good for now. We're also going to want, of course, like a product component for this cart. So I'm going to hit F for frame, and I'm going to create a square that's maybe 80 by 80 pixels. And we're going to fill that with a product image. Okay, nice. And now, oops, let's make sure that's 80. And let's give that a good 10 pixel radius. And then we need, of course, the product name. So we can just say green chair for this. And we definitely don't want it that big. So let's choose our button text for this. I like that. And then we need to have the price on this. So do that. And then I think we've been doing the prices in the burnt orange. And for this, let's do it in the caption text. Okay, and then we also are going to need a way to remove this from the cart. So we'll make that link this color. And we're going to lay these out, of course, using auto layout in a minute. I just want to get everything kind of set. And then let's use this line to kind of break it up. Because what if we had more than one product? I think you'd want a line to break them up. And to make this really nice and subtle, let's just make it 0.5. That looks nice. Okay, and then we're gonna want kind of like a totaling area. So sub total. And then over here, we'll actually put what the subtotal is. So $299.99. I also want to have here like a coupon code area. So for that, we need to design a field. And we haven't designed a field yet. So let's go over and create a new component. And actually, I'm going to use this. Remember how I said before, I like to start with the current component that we have and edit it from there. So I definitely want this shape and background color. So I'm just grabbing an instance of this component and I'm going to detach it. So it's no longer, it no longer has anything to do with this button component. I'm going to name it field. We're going to get rid of that. And instead of button text, we're just going to do body text for this. And then we'll just call this field text here. Okay, so that's pretty good. Now we definitely want, we want this text to be pinned to the left for sure. When you're doing fields, it's good to have a couple of different variants of the component. So I just made this a component using Option Command K. Then I'm going to add a variant. So we're going to have one variant for, we'll call this filled text and sample text. And the sample text, we're actually going to make super light like this. And we're going to make the color like 70% opacity. I think that'll be good. So now we got to make sure these are named correctly. So we'll call this state filled and state sample. Okay, so let's grab the sample text since this coupon field won't be filled yet. And I'm just going to put it in here. And eventually we're going to want it to fill the container, however like wide the container is. But for now, this is fine. And actually, now that I'm looking at it, I think I want the field to be a little bit taller. So I'm going to add padding for both of them. So instead of just 12, I'm actually going to do 16. And instead of 18 here, let's do 24. There we go. Okay, so that should have adapted here, which it did, so that looks good. So this is gonna say coupon code. And then we need like an actual checkout button. So I'm gonna grab our main button here, paste it on in. Actually, I think we want the large button. So let's go into assets, grab button, large. And we're gonna do proceed to checkout. And I think I also want to have like an arrow here for proceed to checkout, arrow right. But we need the arrow to be on the other side. So I'm just going to detach this instance and scooch that over and add a little bit of padding. So maybe 12 pixels. Maybe that's too much, maybe 8. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, so now that we've got all the elements, we need to turn on auto layout and start to get this together. So you can tell when we hit auto layout that we have some work to do. So I'm actually gonna hit undo so that we can group some things together first. So I'm going to frame these two things together, frame selection. I'm gonna frame these things together and all of these things together. Frame selection. We're going to turn on auto layout again. Instead of hugging contents, we're going to do fixed width. And like I said, we're going to do 600 pixels. And then we want for all of these elements to fill the container widthwise. So instead of fixed, I'm going to do fill container, fill container, fill container. Okay. And then we want to set the padding. So on between these elements, we have 36 pixels. We'll leave that for now. But what about on the right and left and the top and bottom? Yeah, I actually like 40 for that. I think that's going to be good. And then these elements in here, this is not really how we want them to behave. So we need to turn on auto layout for this as well. We need to turn on auto space in between so that that fills up the whole row. So that's good. Now for this, let's think about how we want to do this. So I think we need to frame some different things together here. Let's frame this together and turn on auto layout. We'll hug the contents and have 4 pixels between these. And then we're going to turn on auto layout for this as well. And I think we need to frame these together in order to manipulate this padding. So I think 16 is good for that. And then we'll again do auto spacing. And then this line here, which I'm having a hard time selecting, so I'm just going to select it over on the layers panel. We want this to fill the container, except we want it to go on the next line. So that means that we actually have to frame these together so that we only have 2 elements, 2 groups. And then with this full frame, we're going to stack these vertically. And we don't need that much space in between these. We just probably need like 24 pixels, if that. And then with this whole frame, we need to turn on auto layout again. Oops. We're going to have these side by side. We're going to do auto fill container, and then move that to the middle. I think that looks best in the middle. Okay, so that's looking good. Now we need to deal with this section. So again, turning on auto layout, and we're going to have each of these elements fill the container. But when we do that, we realize that we need to frame these together so that they can stack on top of each other. So frame selection, auto layout, up and down, and we'll just do, let's see, I think 16 pixels padding there is good. Okay, that is looking good. I think we could use some more space in between these though. So let's make this auto. These two things we need to frame together and fill the container. But when we do that, we are kind of messing with these. So now we need to go stack these vertically. And again, we don't need that much space. Maybe more than 24, maybe 40 is good. You need to turn on auto layout here in order to turn on auto space between, and we'll center those vertically. Okay, so now this is nice and responsive, though I think 600 pixels should be pretty good for this cart element. And I think this is looking great. So we've got that down. Now let's head to checkout. So this page is going to have to be a bit longer probably. We're going to make it the correct background color. We need to add our navigation, and I think we want to add like a nice image and header for this too, just so that it looks nice. So we'll call this checkout. And then we'll use a different image for this from the folder just to switch things up, make them look nice. And I think we need to, again, add sort of like a background fill to make this a bit darker, just so you can see this like checkout a bit better. I think that's good actually. So now for checkout, we're gonna have 3 different steps to our checkout process. And I think we can use this layout again. I think that will work well. So I'm just gonna bring this up here, and we're gonna have 3 steps. So our first step is going to be shipping details. Our second step is gonna be payment method. And then third step will be finalize. Can have like 64 pixels between those. And then we can make this a bit longer to fully kind of underline that. I think that looks better. And then we can get rid of these. And that bottom line as well. And I think what we want to do is just sort of add in a bunch of fields here. So I'm going to go in and copy our coupon field and just kind of throw that in there. So actually I want this to be in a different frame. So I'm just going to close that frame up. So that's just these, we'll call this steps. And then down here, we'll kind of frame together all of our fields. So we want one here for first name, last name, address, So as we're kind of getting these fields together, I think this is a good time for us to turn our grid on. So we're just going to add this 12 column grid. And I think I want to have a section over here where we have like the cart. So like for example, let's grab this component here. And maybe it should take up like 4 columns over on this side. So then that means we want to make sure that these aren't taking up too many, right? So we're just going to do like 3 and 6. So the ones that take up, oh, actually we can do like 4 and 4, right? So 4, 4, this one can be 8, this one can be 4 and 4. So this is going to be state and zip. Okay, or I guess city and state. And then this, we should probably have another one for like street address, like apartment. If we have that. Okay, now that we have this kind of laid out, let's hide our grid for now, just so we don't get too confused. Need one for zip code as well. Now to make sure these are aligned, I'm just gonna come up here and hit on align vertical. I'm gonna do yeah, we can see those are aligned. Then I'm gonna group these together, group these together, and that way I can make sure these are all aligned. So let's do 32 pixels between those. That should be good. And then let's move on to this section over here. So I think we're gonna need like a heading for this. So let's grab one of these headings and we'll just say cart summary. And let's frame these together. So I think 64 pixels of padding is good for this. Now I'm thinking maybe this should actually just be as wide as these 8 columns. Yeah, that way we can have like our cart summary up here in line with these and kind of give ourselves like a separate line just so that this feels a little bit more intentional. So we'll line it up with there and with the edge here. Okay, I like that, but I don't think there's enough space in between here. So this might be one of those situations where we need to break the grid a little bit. So what if we actually only made this 3 columns wide? Let's just see what that looks like. Yeah, that's not bad, but then I think we need to like center it in between here. So (92) and 92. That's feeling better. So now we can probably bring these up a little bit now that they have more space to breathe and just do like 40 pixels of padding there. That feels good. And then I feel like we need another one of these lines, but maybe these don't need to be 4 pixels. That's like, that seems like a lot. So let's just make them 2. And then we'll have another 40 pixels here. Then we need like an order summary. And here we'll have like subtotal, taxes, shipping, and then total. And these definitely don't need to be that big. Let's make all of them the body text, except the last one will be body text bold. Oops. Bold body. There we go. So let's just do 16 pixels between these. That should be good. And then if we just kind of duplicate this across here and change this to be right aligned, and then hit the right align button up here, then we can kind of just put in some numbers here. So we had $299.99 as our subtotal. Let's just say we have $50 in taxes and $60 in shipping. Then our total, oh, now I have to do math. Then our total is going to be $409.99. Okay, nice. I feel like we don't need that line. It seems like a lot. Okay, cool. Scooch this up, maybe 40 pixels there. Okay, let's just make this one too. Yeah, that's better. I think we need to do that over here too. Like these lines are just too thick. Those two. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Feel like we could break these up a bit so that it's clear it's like a line total. So 16. Yeah, that's looking better. And then we could even make this, we've been using like the 75% text. Yeah. Okay, awesome. This is looking good. Now we just need to add a button for like next to proceed to the next step. So let's just grab this button here. We'll say proceed to payment method. And I feel like this doesn't even need to be fixed. I feel like this can hug the contents here. Yeah, that definitely looks better. Now, the only thing that I think could stand out more is this. So let's make it burnt orange since we've been making a lot of the prices burnt orange. I think that would make sense. Oh, and here we don't really want the option to remove this actually. So just do that. And instead of removing that, we need a link to like go back to the cart to like edit the cart. So let's actually put that here. So edit. Yeah, I think that's good. So if you wanted to edit the cart, you would just click that link there and it would take you back to this cart. Okay, awesome. I think this is pretty good. So let's just add the footer. All right, we're so close to finishing these designs. In the next lesson, we'll finish up this prototype and even finish up our little animated preloader that we started designing at the very beginning of this course.